come back when the sun is up, or don't come back at all. I was told you are the best, a voice replied. It was smooth, synthetic, and unmistakably expensive. Lin paused, the laser scalpel hovering over the memory chip. He looked up. Standing in the doorway was a man in a pristine charcoal gray trench coat. The rain seemed to refuse to touch him, repelled by some high-end hydrophobic field. His eyes were the standard issue corporate blue, glowing faintly in the dim light. Best is a relative term, Lin said, setting the scalpel down. I'm the only one left who doesn't report to the central AI. That usually means best to people like you. Who sent you? The man stepped forward, placing a small metallic drive on the counter. It was old tech, encased in rusted iron, a stark contrast to the sleek glass and light of the city outside. Name's Kale, the man said. I don't have a client. This is a personal request. Lin eyed the drive. Personal requests are dangerous. Memories are heavy, Kale. Sometimes they crush the carrier. It's not mine, Kale said, his voice dropping an octave. It belonged to Counselor Vance. He died an hour ago. Officially, it was a heart attack. Unofficially, he trailed off, tapping the drive. I need you to extract the last 10 minutes. There's a encryption lock I can bypass without frying the data. Lynn felt a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty shop. Counselor Vance was the head of the ethics committee for Ethelgerd Biotics, the company that practically owned the city's water supply. If Vance was dead, the power vacuum would be bloody. I don't touch corporate politics, Lynn said, pushing the drive back. Get out. Cale didn't move. He reached into his coat and pulled out a credit chip, sliding it across the metal surface. The display lit up. What credits? Lynn stared at the number. It was enough to buy a ticket off World. Enough to leave the smog, the neon, and the endless rain behind. Enough to maybe, just maybe, find out what happened to his sister 5 years ago. Just the extraction, Lynn said, his voice tight. I view the metadata. I pulled the file. I hand it to you. I don't dive in. Diving is extra. Agreed, Cale said. Lynn grabbed the drive. It was cold, unnaturally so. He slotted it into his primary deck. a chaotic mess of wires and monitors that looked more like a bomb than a computer. The screens flared to life, cascading with green coat. Subject: Vance Arthur. Status: deceased, neuro flatline. Integrity 84%. Initializing extraction, Lin announced. He pulled the neural link over his head. If I scream, pull the plug. He closed his eyes and hit enter. The world dissolved. The smell of ozone and rain vanished, replaced by the scent of expensive cigars and antiseptic. Lin was no longer in his shop. He was standing in a penthouse suite overlooking the holographic skyline of Neo, Shanghai. He was viewing through Vance's eyes. The counselor was sitting in a leather chair, his hands trembling. Across from him sat a woman. Her face was blurred, a privacy filter, likely active in real time. It's done. Then Vance's voice echoed in Lin's mind. It sounded terrified. The subject is prepared. The woman's voice was distorted, sounding like grinding metal. But the cost has increased. We need the access codes to the Sector 4 server farm. You want to initiate the upload, Vance gasped. That's illegal. The Human Preservation Act strictly forbids forced consciousness transfer. Preservation is a quaint concept, the woman replied. Evolution is mandatory. Give us the codes, Arthur, or we release the footage of what you did in Macau. Vance stood up, knocking over a glass of whiskey. No, I won't let you turn people into data streams. I won't let you kill the soul. There was a hiss of compressed air. A small dart protruded from Vance's neck. The vision began to fracture. Static bled into the edges of the room. Vance fell to his knees, clutching his chest. But he didn't look at the woman. He looked directly at the wall, directly at a painting of a lighthouse. Focus, Lin thought. What is he looking at? As Vance's vision faded to black, he whispered a sequence of numbers. Not a plea for help. A password. 7 Alpha-9 0 Echo. The simulation snapped. Lin gasped, ripping the headset off. He fell back in his chair, sweat drenching his shirt. The shop was silent, save for the hum of the servers. He looked up. Cale was gone. The door was still locked. Lin looked at the monitor. The extraction was complete. The file was sitting there, labeled Vance_last_moment_stat. But something was wrong. The file size was too large. Much too large. He opened the directory. Hidden inside the memory file wasn't just the video of Vance's death. There was a subfolder. Project Echo. Lynn's heart hammered against his ribs. He reached for the mouse to delete it, to scrub the drive and tell Cale it was corrupted. It was the smart move. The survival move. But then he saw the thumbnail of the subfolder. It was a picture of a girl. She was wearing a red jacket, standing in front of a school gate. Lynn stopped breathing. It was his sister. The same red jacket she wore the day she vanished. The bell above the door chimed again. Lynn spun around. Cale was back. But he wasn't alone. Two heavily armed security drones hovered behind him, their red optical sensors locking onto Lynn's chest. Change of plans. Cale set his corporate blue eyes cold and dead. We're not just taking the file, Lynn. We're taking the architect. Lynn looked at the drive, then at the back exit. he grabbed the drive and smashed his hand onto the emergency purge button for the shop's Halon gas system. The wind of the North Sea tasted of salt and forgotten things. Eleanor was stepped out of the rusted rental car, her leather boots sinking into gravel mixed with broken seashells, and breathed it in. It was colder than she remembered, sharper, as if the ocean had spent the years she was gone sharpening its teeth. The sky hung low and bruised, streaked with gray, blue clouds that threatened rain, and beyond the narrow stretch of coastal road, the waves rolled endlessly toward the horizon, heavy and slow. 27 years old, freshly unemployed, freshly untethered, she had come home to Brinehold. Home was a generous word for it. Brinehold was the kind of town time forgot, a cluster of weathered cottages, a single gas station, a boarded up general store, and a lighthouse that stood sentinel on the jagged headland half a mile west of town. A town where everyone knew everyone's business, and no one bothered to hide the scars they'd carried for generations. Eleanor had run from it at 18, desperate for city lights, for noise, for a life that didn't smell like salt and grief. Now, at 27, the city had spit her back out. Her publishing job had dissolved in a wave of layoffs 3 months prior. Her long-term boyfriend had left her for a colleague with a sunnier disposition and fewer broken parts. Her apartment lease had ended. Her carefully built, ordinary life had unraveled thread by thread until there was nothing left to hold on to. When the lawyer's letter arrived, informing her she'd inherited her grandfather's lighthouse cottage on the headland, she'd packed a suitcase without a second thought. She had nowhere else to go. The cottage loomed ahead, tucked at the base of the lighthouse's stone spine. It was smaller than she recalled, weathered to a soft silver gray, its wooden sidings scored by decades of wind and storm. The roof was patched in 3 places. The front porch sagged slightly on its left support, and the small garden out front was overgrown with sea-thrift and wild gorse. Yellow blooms blazing bright against the muted gray of the coast. A single wooden bench sat on the porch, its paint peeled completely away, worn smooth by generations of rain and sun. Eleanor dragged her suitcase up the rickety steps, the wood creaking under her weight like a warning. She'd not set foot in this house since she was 16. The summer her grandfather fell ill. The summer everything changed. For 11 years, she'd buried the memories deep, locked them away behind skyscrapers and deadlines and empty city nights. Now they pressed against her chest, thick and suffocating, as she inserted the rusted key into the lock. The door clicked open with a groan. Inside, the air was still, thick with the scent of old pine, dried seagrass, and the faint, lingering musk of her grandfather's pipe. Dust motes danced in the thin slants of grey light that slipped through the curtained windows. The cottage was frozen in time, untouched since the day he'd left it. A worn armchair sat by the fireplace, a stack of dog-eared books piled beside it, maritime histories, poetry collections, weather journals dating back 40 years. A wooden dining table stood in the center of the room, scarred with decades of use. A chipped ceramic mug resting on its surface, faint brown rings of old tea staining the wood beneath it. On the wall above the fireplace hung a single photograph. Eleanor's breath caught. It was taken the summer she was 12. She stood on this very porch, grinning gap-toothed, wind tangling her brown hair, while face lined and warm, one hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Behind them, the lighthouse rose tall and white, the ocean stretching endless and blue beyond. It was the last perfect summer she could remember, the last time her family had felt whole. She set her suitcase down slowly, her fingers brushing the edge of the framed photo. Her throat tightened. Grandfather Elias had been her safe place, her anchor, the only person who'd ever understood her quiet, dreaming heart. After her parents' death in a car crash when she was 7, he'd raised her alone in this cottage, teaching her to read the types, to listen to the wind, to find stories in the endless roll of the waves. He died when she was 22, while she was buried in university exams and city internships, too busy to come home until it was too late. Killed, coiled, sharp and hot in her stomach, familiar and unshakable. A soft knock sounded at the door. Eleanor turned, wiping the faint damp from her cheeks, and pulled open the door. A woman stood on the porch, mid-40s, with sun-weathered cheeks and streaks of silver woven through her dark hair, a canvas tote bag slung over one arm. She wore a well-worn flannel shirt and jeans, rubber boots caked with coastal mud, and her eyes were warm, familiar, crinkled at the corners with a gentle smile. "Ellie," she said, the nickname soft and tentative. Eleanor's lips parted. Mara Hale. Her childhood best friend, the girl who'd snuck out with her at midnight to chase bioluminescent waves, who'd shared her peanut butter sandwiches and her wildest dreams of escaping Breinhold. They'd lost touch after Eleanor left for college. Years of distance and busy lives erasing their daily conversations. But in this moment, no time had passed at all. Mara stepped forward, pulling her into a tight hug, and Eleanor melted into it, the first genuine touch she'd felt in months. "I heard your car pull up 10 minutes ago," Mara said, pulling back, her hands still resting on Eleanor's arms. "I've been waiting for you to show up. Figured you'd hide inside and avoid the town for as long as possible." Eleanor huffed a laugh, shaky and relieved. "That was the plan, honestly. Classic you." Mara smiled, then held up the tote bag. "Brought you bread. Fresh sourdough from my mom's bakery, and a jar of blackberry jam. Figured the cupboards would be bare." they were. Eleanor had known they would be. She'd packed nothing but clothes and a few books, assuming she'd spend the first few days cleaning and settling in, adrift and unmoored. "Come in," Eleanor said, stepping aside. "Please. I was just staring at the past." Mara followed her inside, her gaze sweeping over the cottage, soft with nostalgia. "Nothing's changed. Not one bit. Elias kept this place so perfect, even when he was sick. I still remember him letting us climb the lighthouse steps when we were kids. Said the view taught you how small your problems were. I forgot how much he used to say that," Eleanor murmured. "You forgot a lot of things about this town," Mara said gently. "But it didn't forget you." She set the bread and jam on the kitchen counter, then turned to face Eleanor, her expression softening into earnestness. "I'm sorry about everything, Ellie. The job, the breakup. I saw your old roommate's post online. I've been waiting for you to come home." Eleanor blinked, surprised. She'd never been one for social media, had deleted all her accounts months ago when her life fell apart. But she should have known small towns kept track. It It's stupid, she said, shrugging, trying for nonchalance even as her chest ached. Just life falling apart. Normal stuff. Normal doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, Mara said firmly. You don't have to pretend with me. Not here. Not anymore. The words settled over Eleanor like a blanket, warm and unexpected. For months, she'd been pretending she was fine, pretending the loss of her job and her relationship didn't hollow her out, pretending she hadn't wasted years chasing a life that never fit. In the city, vulnerability was weakness. Here, it felt like the only honest thing to be. Before she could reply, a low, distant horn echoed across the water. The lighthouse. Eleanor turned toward the window, staring out at the tall white tower standing sentinel on the headland. Even in the grey daylight, its presence was imposing, steady, unchanging. For 100 years, it had guided ships through storm and fog, cutting through darkness to lead lost things home. It still runs, she asked quietly. Mara nodded. Automated now, of course. Has been since Elias retired. But it still chimes every hour. Fog horn blares when the mist rolls in. Town folklore says it's haunted. Says you can hear a man's voice on the wind some nights, calling out to the waves. Eleanor smiled faintly. That's just grandfather. He always talked to the ocean. Mara's expression softened. Yeah, it is. They fell into quiet silence. The only sounds the distant crash of waves, the wind whistling through the cottage eaves, the slow tick of an old wall clock in the hallway. For the first time in months, Eleanor didn't feel rushed, didn't feel panicked, didn't feel like she was falling. She felt still. Stay for tea, she asked. Finally, Mara grinned. I thought you'd never ask. Chapter R. The journal. The rain came that evening, soft and steady, tapping against the cottage windows long after dark. Mara left as dusk fell, promising to bring fresh seafood from her brother's fishing boat tomorrow, and Eleanor settled into the quiet rhythm of the cottage. She lit the old wood burning fireplace, stacking dry driftwood she found in the backyard, and soon the room filled with warm, crackling firelight, chasing away the coastal chill. She made tea in a chipped enamel pot, sliced the fresh sourdough bread and ate slowly, savoring the simple, unrushed meal. Afterward, she began to clean. It was mindless work, the kind that quieted the endless chatter in her brain. She dusted the shelves, wiped down the counters, opened the windows to let the fresh salt wind sweep through the rooms, clearing away the stale stillness of years of emptiness. As